You're watching Euronews now. I'm Takumbo Sulako with your top stories. Desperately seeking support after losing his parliamentary majority, France's president rallies his political rivals in a bid to rescue his reform package. But the main opposition says it doesn't want to work with him. EU foreign ministers continue talks over how to save the grain in Ukraine that's being blocked by Russia. Also in the programme, a summer of discontent begins in the UK with transport turmoil as rail and metro workers hold the country's biggest strike in 30 years.
The French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne has offered to resign. The move piles more pressure on President Emmanuel Macron, who's due to hold talks with opponents later today to drum up support after his party lost its majority in Sunday's Assembly elections. Macron is hoping to find solutions and avoid political gridlock, but he faces an uphill battle, as leaders of both left and right have already said they plan to remain in opposition. That could spell the end of Macron's efforts to push through major reforms, including on pensions, tax cuts and raising the retirement age, all of which will be nearly impossible to do without a coalition partner. The Macron camp's main battle will be against a powerful united left coalition and its leader, the hard-left veteran Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who labels Sunday's results as the electoral failure of Macron. He's refusing to take part in the talks, meaning the president may have to resort to a deal with right-wing Republicans. Far-right leader Marine Le Pen will reportedly take part in the talks. Her National Rally Party made historic gains in the parliamentary election second round and won seats beyond many observers' expectations.
Complex talks are continuing to try and unblock Ukraine's Black Sea port of Odessa to allow the export of cereals such as maize and wheat. Since Russia's invasion and its blockade of the port, tons of grain remain stuck. But President Zelensky says efforts to resolve the problem are being made.
We are conducting complex multi-level negotiations to unblock our Ukrainian ports. But you see, there is no progress yet, because no real tool has been yet found to ensure against further Russian attacks.
Various solutions are being sought, including land options via road and rail. Hungary has now offered its territory as a possible route for Ukrainian grain exports.
So we have offered that grain export from Ukraine designated either to North Africa or the Middle East can go through Hungary. And we can also give free run of shipment capacity and logistic capacity.
Meanwhile, people in Kramatorsk in Ukraine's eastern region of Donbass are seeking some sort of normality despite concerns over Russia's advance in their direction. The besieged city of Severodonetsk is only 50 kilometers away, but one local said they may be frightened, but this is home.
Utku Özbay has been working in Turkey as a dentist for 21 years. But that will soon change.
I do this job just to pay my bills. I'm a single mom. I have a 9-year-old son. I cannot afford his school expenses anymore. It's getting really very hard.
Özbay is planning to leave the country. She says she can no longer make a profit at her dental clinic amid rising inflation. Many of her patients are turning down treatment simply because they can't afford it. And she's not the only one concerned about her income. Doctors are protesting over their working conditions, including their wages, which are declining in value due to the inflation rates. Prices for food, housing, transportation are going up massively in Turkey. The government says the inflation rate is more than 70%. That's a 2-decade high. But polls suggest many in this country don't believe that number. They think it's much higher. So does a group of independent economists. They say the real inflation number is 160%. Now, one of those economists is being investigated by his university.
You know, inflation creates huge difference on politics. The voting share and the number of votes are incredibly decreasing against against the ruling party.
Many workers end up leaving for Europe, especially Germany, which has a large Turkish diaspora. That's where Özbay is hoping to find a new home, even if it means having to switch jobs.
I will have a life that I deserve there, and also my son, it's possible to have a good education there.
Christina Jovanovski, Euronews, Istanbul.
In the UK, rail services will be crippled from today due to the biggest walkout in the industry for more than 30 years. Thousands of staff at Network Rail and 13 train operators walked out from midnight after last-ditch talks to avoid the strikes failed. Services across the country will be hit for 3 days, today, the 23rd and 25th of this month. Only around 1 in 5 trains will be running. The strike is due to a dispute over pay, job security and working conditions. The RMT union is asking for a pay rise of at least 7% to offset the rising cost of living, but it says employers have offered a maximum of 3%, on condition they also accept job cuts and changes to working practices. The government says wage demands that are too high will make it hard to halt rising inflation. The RMT and the Union Unite are also holding a 24-hour walkout on the London Underground, which will cause huge disruption to the service.
Well, today the biggest railway strikes in 30 years get underway in Britain, with tens of thousands of workers on the lines and those in the train companies as well, walking out in a dispute. The unions for weeks have been in negotiations with the operators, backed up by the government, over pay and working conditions. With inflation running at around 10% here in the UK, the unions say their members deserve a 7% pay rise. However, the company's bosses themselves say that they'll only give 2%, with an additional 1% if they agree to a change in terms. That's been rejected by the unions. They're saying that they're being called to shut all the ticket offices and for the members to have to work on Sundays if needed as well. They say that some of the changes would also jeopardise passenger safety. Now, this will lead to disruption not just today, but also the walkout days themselves, Thursday and Saturday, the days in between, and Sunday as well, because trains and staff will be in the wrong place. It is so bad that people are simply being told not to travel on the train network, coupled with today as well a strike on the tubes here in London. Passengers I spoke to here at London's King's Cross station were divided about whether or not this was the right course of action.
Maybe it's fair, and I guess sometimes this is the only way to get what you want, seeing the strikes, but I think it just affects so many people that have nothing to do with it.
It's a bit annoying, I guess, for commuters, but yeah, if they're not paid enough and feel like they need to strike, yeah, I'd say so.
Obviously my heart's with the workers and not being paid enough and being understaffed after COVID, but since I just think it's not the right way to go about it.
The unions, though, are adamant it's the right thing to do, and there are potentially other strikes coming down the line in other sectors, like in the medical sector and in the teaching profession as well. Calls from some unions for a summer of discontent over the repeated calls from the government for employees not to ask for wage increases during a period of inflation, worrying it could lead to a spiral, though some economists and the unions themselves say that simply wouldn't be the case. What is clear, though, is that this is going to cost the UK government at least £1 billion in terms of lost revenue over the next couple of days. The hospitality sector in particular, restaurants, hotels, saying that they've got a wave of cancellations. And for anyone trying to go to the Glastonbury Music Festival in England, it's going to be pretty challenging to get there. Vincent McAviney, Euronews, London's King's Cross station.
A Russian Nobel Peace Prize winning journalist has sold his medal to help pay for children displaced by the war in Ukraine. We'll have more details on that story coming up after this break.